Hey YouTube, my name is Steph and today we are giving you another costume breakdown, and you can guess which one this is. Obi-Wan costume from the Clone Wars animated series, and I wanted to do something a little bit different. I know everybody has their standard costumes that they're all trying to replicate, but I want to do something a little bit different for various different reasons. Number one is the Obi-Wan Star Wars kind of animated series has that Obi-Wan flavor, but slightly different, because I want to tackle some of that armor, some of the EVA foam type armor. Now in the movie he doesn't have a cloak, so I'll take this off right away, but it's a nice touch. So what I liked about it is that it had a lot of this kind of stormtrooper armor that you see so much in there, and so I really wanted to kind of get that challenge, and I wanted the challenge of the fabric, but not too much fabric, just because I know that it's a lot of work. So this was this kind of perfect hybrid of the type of work that I want to do. I want to do a lot of EVA foam, and this was the costume to do it. So, and I've been a huge Star Wars fan ever since I was a little kid, and so this was the time to tackle this costume. Now this costume alone, if you look at the picture, it has a ton of armor, a ton, from the shoulders to the armbands, which are here. Here, I'll show you what they look like. I'll use the other one. So from the armbands right here, right, and these connect all together to the hand, to the wrists, all the way down to the boots. So we have the shin pads all the way down to the shoes, which I'll get to in just a moment. It has so many different pieces, and maybe it was too big of a challenge for what I want to do, but I thought it was going to be a whole lot of fun. Now, in a previous video, I talked about how you can use Star Spray 1000 or use regular white glue actually to strengthen a whole bunch of EVA foam to prevent some of the cracking, but I thought I was dealing with so much EVA foam that I honestly didn't even care. I really wanted this weathered technique, so if it would crack or change or get any of that kind of weathering, I honestly didn't care. So I'll show you how I got to some of the weathering a little bit later, but let's just break down some of these EVA foam pieces. Now, I use different sizes to achieve different thicknesses and kind of popping out certain areas of the armor, just like the image showed, and sometimes I keep it pretty tight. So I use a series of different thicknesses. I believe this is 5 mil. I don't even know. It's the standard one with the kind of foam tiles, and then you can get some thinner ones, which is kind of like half the size, and then you can get some that are like around 2 mil, and it gets very, very paper thin. The paper thin one I've used for anything that has to wrap around, like the piece right around the neck. That's a totally separate piece from the top. These little strips that I wanted to add a little bit of dimension, those are the thinnest ones. I also do the shoe wrap, which I'll show you. So these are two separate pieces. I used an old shoe and wrapped it with that very thin, kind of gives that stormtrooper type style look, and the piece kind of sneaks right on top of it right here, as I'll show you. As soon as I put my shoe inside, or I slip this on first, then I put my shoe on. These little pieces are the thinnest pieces. Most of this is the very thick. Anytime that's a thick base, like the shoulder pads or anything like that. Here, I'll see if I can turn him so you can have a look. Here. So anytime we're dealing with the kind of thicker armor, I use the thickest one that I could find. Now, one tip when you are tracing out these pieces, I guess one of the best ways to do it is by just having your shirt on and kind of duct taping pieces on, and then from there you trace it out the way that you want it, at least the rough shape, so you know where it has to start and where you have to stop. Take it off and then retrace it according to what that pattern is, or draw it out, or the way that you would do that. And then once you come to your different templates here, like this one, I only really need to create half that breastplate, right? Because I can duplicate it. I just need to find that center point and kind of duplicate it onto the other side. So know that your back is different than your front, but I had to learn that the hard way. But know that, you know, it's a matter of trial and error. One tip that I would say is that when you're dealing with a pattern that's very, very thin and you're transferring it onto something that's very, very thick, as soon as you cut that pattern to the exact same one, because it's thicker and it's trying to wrap around that same shape, it naturally becomes smaller. Because you're cutting out that paper, but you're extruding it out to the every 5 millimeters further, you need to add kind of that 5 millimeters or ½ inch or something like that to the outside edge, between a 1/4 inch and a ½ inch, to add to that to the outside. Just because as soon as you put it together and you slip it on, I would strongly suggest that you try it out before you commit to painting it and all that good jazz. Do a good test fit, because it shrunk on me. It got a lot tighter than what I wanted it to be when it fit perfectly with that duct tape. So that's just a little note there. You can use different cardstock. This one was used for the Shin Pad. I used regular cardboard. Any which way that you can use that'll hold kind of its shape, so that you can get a better idea of what your final result is going to be like. Now, for every one of these pieces, I didn't use that rubberized spray, or I didn't use Styro Spray 1000 to add that strength. I did not care. I just went straight with a primer. You absolutely have to prime it after you've shapened it and you've heated it up to get kind of to close off those cells, which everybody knows for EVA foam. But as soon as you're past that point, I prime it and paint it white, and then add a high gloss on top of it. Once that's all sealed in, then I start my weathering technique, which is Adam Savage does a really good one on Tipsted. He added to kind of weather his whites. He was doing an astronaut box of some kind. I can't remember which one it was, but it's a series of yellow, browns, and greens. And once you have the yellow, is really what comes out. A little bit of brown, but mostly yellow. And then you start rubbing it into every nook and cranny, every crevice, and you kind of wipe it on, wipe it off according to what you really like, and then let it dry. If it's too much, too aggressive, wipe it off. Just keep wiping it off until you have something that you like. If it dries and you want it to be a little bit more harsh of weathering, the more weathering that's on there, I think the better it looks. Especially when it comes to my inspiration, I don't want to leave it pristine and white, but the image called for it to be a little bit more weathered, and so I went that direction and that route. Okay, so we're done with the EVA foam. So the base of this whole costume is this black spandex kind of suit, head to toe, right from toes, right up to your neck. And so just you can purchase them on whatever, AliExpress, anywhere where you can find them. The trick is to get the right size. This one's a little bit tight on me, but it still works. So I use this black spandex as the base of all the black that happens underneath, as you can see in the picture. After that, I have this fabric, which I love this fabric. Now, I don't remember what the fabric actually is. All I was looking for was that Jedi thick, very textured, that thick kind of tunic sandy color that I was looking for. And this one depicts it very, very well. It's got lots of grains going different directions, and it gives me that kind of thick Jedi look. And so I thought that was absolutely crucial for this costume. And if I get anything right, that would be the one, is to get that really, using any kind of fake cutting corners on that fabric or that material, I think it just kind of degrades your whole costume. So that's one thing that was very important for me. The second one was to use real leather. Now, I used real leather for this. All I did was I went to my local kind of leather shop. I didn't go to Tandy Leather. It was in Winnipeg here in Canada. We have a one that's called Warkoff Shafir, and they're really good because you really get to pick the piece that you want, and you can take as much as you want. So I got the lady to cut strips at various different sizes, and I put them together myself afterwards, but it made it super basic. And then for my pouches on the side, it was the same thickness as my belt here, so I just made little pouches and for my belt. And actually these pouches became very crucial in the whole costume, because I was able to hide my seams behind my pouches. So if I turn this whole belt all the way around, all the way through the back, which you'll see a little bit more of the armor here, but you'll see no seam on this whole costume, because they're hiding behind this pouch. And so if I open this up on the side here, which I Velcro shut, I have what they'll sell at that same place. It's kind of like a nut and bolt that kind of fits on there, and it assembles the whole belt together. And so that's how I actually put it on. This whole thing becomes very complicated when you're trying to put every piece on at a time, but it becomes worth it all the way in the end. This little piece in the front is totally fake. It's not a belt buckle at all. In the animated series, it looks very much like a bow tie, and so I just spray painted it silver and made this little pattern, and it kind of ties the whole thing together. It just draws your eye in, and it tells you that it's Obi-Wan. Now obviously with every one of my costumes, between my wand and my my Captain America shield, or my legit sword from Aragorn, of course I needed a lightsaber. So a long time ago, this what started the whole thing, is I picked up an Ultra Saber lightsaber. Now I did not pick up Obi-Wan's lightsaber, because at the time I didn't know which costume I wanted to do. All I wanted was an Ultra Saber lightsaber, and if I kept it pretty generic, at least I can make whatever I wanted. But if I got the Obi-Wan lightsaber, I would be stuck to only making an Obi-Wan costume. So I opted out for the cheaper version, which is just a standard lightsaber kind of look with the blue blade. And so it was something that I really needed at the time. Obviously, need or want is two different things, but this what kind of triggered the whole thing for it to happen from the beginning, and what kind of kicked off this whole costume to begin with. So that is, in a nutshell, my whole costume. I was really pleased with how it turned out. And one last final note, I guess, is if you can ever use either a laser or a silhouette or a CNC cutter of any of sorts, I was able to buy some vinyl from Sticky Vinyl, really bright red vinyl from Michaels, and I made the crest here. I just took a PNG, I believe is what it is, and brought it in there and cut it out to the size. Things like that are absolutely crucial. Whenever you can make an emblem from an actual CNC cutter and not do it by hand, and you get that detail, use it. Absolutely do it. One final note that I want to say is that when people put costumes together, you have people who are super creative and want to do it all themselves from the get-go, and you have people who like to just trace out a pattern and get it done. Just tell me what pattern is going to put, what it takes to put this whole thing together, and kind of that's it. Just give it to me and I'll put it together. Now I strongly suggest people don't use patterns all the time. You will be so much more appreciative of your work when you don't just get given a pattern to put your costume together. That's why I'm not going to give these patterns out, because they're kind of tailor fit just for me, and they're super simple lines and easy to create when it comes to this armor. I thought it was going to be an extremely daunting task to put this whole thing together, but honestly, when you take it step by step and you just kind of slowly put all the pieces together, you really take your time, you can really create some pretty amazing stuff that you will be proud of. So I'm not going to give these patterns away, because I think that part of costume making is really experiencing that kind of adventure of putting it all together, and you're going to be so much more proud of your work when you can be inspired by somebody else's work and go and create your own. So these very simple items make up a pretty realistic Obi-Wan costume, but I will have to say that in terms of putting it on in comfortability, and I guess the comfort level is quite significantly lower than my previous costume. So if I'm going to wear it for like Halloween, or if I would wear it to like a Comic-Con of any kind, I am gonna go with, let's say, something more like the Captain America or Newt Scamander, because it is way more comfortable than piecing together something like this with EVA foam that's tied on the chest and on all these various different parts. So comfortability not so high, but novelty really quite beautiful stuff. So thanks so much for joining me. I hope you join me on the next video, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.